Hello, everybody. Welcome back to my reviewing your Mons series. In this episode, I've got a very, very interesting situation. I think probably the one that I'm most excited to talk about yet, just because there are so many things to consider here and so many interesting factors at play that I think are resulting in me giving different advice than what I would give to most players. So, yeah, shout out to Bthatsme. They submitted these Suicunes. Now, you look at them, and these are two. They're both good Suicunes, but in wildly different ways. But they both are a lot to consider. Now, on the left here, we have just about any premium player's gold standard for Suicune. Like, a premium player could not ask for a better Suicune here because that'd be sub-skill seedable up to inventory up M, and inventory is a really actually important thing on the Legends. That skill trigger could be sub-skill seeded up to skill trigger M, and that help speed coming in at 50 could be sub-skill seeded up as well, with a main skill chance up nature and XP gains down. Like, you couldn't ask for anything more, and even if you don't have the seeds to invest into it, which that is one thing that's interesting about Bthatsme's account, is that they are free to play. Even without the sub-skill seed investment, this thing is still going to be pretty gosh darn good. And running the Suicune, it's a fun Pokemon. I wouldn't be surprised if you're willing to invest one of your very few limited sub-skill seeds you have access to on the free-to-play on whatever Suicune you get, just because it's a legendary, it's fun. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but if you're going to do that on the Suicune, this is definitely the one to do it on. So, for the duration of this analysis, I'm going to be analyzing it from both the not sub-skill seeding and sub-skill seeding viewpoints, even though you are free to play, which is a consideration. This Suicune on the right has literally nothing for skill triggers, but it's got Helping Bonus and Berry Finding S, which, as you know, is one of the strongest combos in the game. Additionally, it is cheap. Very, very cheap Suicune. It's got Sleep XP bonus to boost the amount of XP that it gains in the night, and it's got an XP gains up nature, and eventually at level 75, it's got that skill level up S. Hopefully by the time that comes around, we might have Helper Boost level 7, so that way you don't have to worry about, oh, I gotta save a skill seed by leaving it at level 5, and then getting the free skill level up at level 75. I don't think that'd be something you'd be worried about, because we've been promised we're eventually getting skill level 7. So, yeah. Overall, two very interesting Suicunes, and they're both good in their own way. Now, their question. I'm pretty sure these are both strong Suicune, just not sure which one I should prioritize and invest the candies into. I have 300 plus candies from the event. Also not sure what or when to use this Mon. I understand that the overstacking concept. Would it be just to use to set up or prepare for Cyan Beach Weeks? I can barely level up on Old Gold Power Plant at the moment, and am thinking more about how useful my decent Raikou is for that reason. I have a few main skill seeds, and am not sure if it's worth it, or if I should just focus more on Raikou based on my current area teams and use seeds elsewhere. I'm just curious on when Suicune might be best used, and which one you would choose as better to use. I see that you also put in here a thanks for all your helpful content, and I thank you for watching as well, and thanks for the well wishes. Anyway, so yeah, understands the concept of overstacking, and is interested in possibly getting into overstacking, but also looking at using it in Cyan Beach Weeks, and there are a lot of things to consider here, because this Suicune is so good at berry production that it's actually interesting to consider for the just general use as a Berrymon. I put that in heavy quotes because it's really doing other things. It's like being a support Pokemon and a Berrymon, 2 in 1 is what it's doing. And for simple comparison, I'd use the production comparison just to get the rough idea. As you can see here, obviously the first one comes out way better than the second one, by quite a long shot. In terms of skill procs per day, it's almost double. In fact, the reason why I'm duplicating it here is because I didn't do this beforehand. I wanted to assess it as well, how many procs per day we can get if my computer's the Ranax calculator is being kind of slow today. Let's see, if we maxed out these sub-skills, because we were willing to dump all the sub-skill seeds into it, then what would we get with this Suicune? So, remember, when we're looking at the Ranax calculator for skill procs per day, give it 1 minute. Okay, we're looking at this number down here. Now we're looking at 3.29 without any sub-skill seed investment, 3.96 with sub-skill seed investment, but the other one only gets 1.81. Now that's not really that great. But if you look at its other forms of productivity, it is just like trouncing this one, because primarily that Berry Finding S, and even the help bonus. Now, the production comparison kind of undercuts help bonus, at least in my experience. I think I messed up one of my settings a little while ago on how to evaluate helping bonus on an individual basis. So for me, it just evaluates it as a 5% reduction to time between helps, which is actually weaker than the way that Help Speed S contributes to a Pokemon's productivity. So it's really not giving this Suicune the full picture. So I really wanted to encapsulate what is the full picture of what's going on here. So I created a lot of teams. Basically, for now, let's focus on these top 8 teams, because I'm really going to have some discussions here about this. Now, the basic settings for all these teams are pretty much the same. I just took the base idea of making Dream Eater Butter Curry relatively consistently with a Victory Bell and Blastoise. For Alligator, for a Berry Specialist to go along with it. Trying to get as many Water types on the team as possible, but still using the healer because, of course, you're going to use a healer. But then wanting some ingredient synergy to make a decent meal. That's just kind of what I was going off of for this team. And all these 4 Pokemon are the same on all the teams. This is actually my Gardevoir from my account. These ones were just kind of hypotheticals I generated. And then the only thing that's different between them is the Suicune and the island. And as you can see, I have Suicune 1, Cyan, no seeds. Suicune 1, Greengrass, no seeds. And then full seeds on the Suicune 1 and Suicune 2 as well across the 2 islands. Now, as we can see, when comparing these teams, taking into account the helping bonus and the Berry Finding S on the Suicune, you can see that the Suicune itself, the second Suicune creates stronger teams overall by quite a long shot, actually. And this is after full main skill seed investment as well. I tested it out at like earlier main skill seeds investments, and it doesn't make a difference. In fact, actually, this one performs better because the thing that makes this one stronger is more procs per day, so having a weaker skill leads to this one actually doing better comparatively over it. So this is the best possible circumstance for Suicune 1 if you want to give it general use. So much so, in fact, that you asked, how do you use this Pokemon? If you want to use it as a generalist, or if you want to use it as this like pseudo berry specialist, it actually kind of works given the right context, and that is with some like water specialist buffing its skill. As you can see down here, I also made a no Suicune team where I just threw down another berry specialist, just a Feraligatr, and that Feraligatr just got Berry Finding S. And as you can see here, the team with no Suicune actually performs better than even the one with Suicune 1 with full seed investment. So, realistically, if you're using this Suicune, you're just looking at the idea of berry bombing and berry bombing exclusively. Now, berry bombing's the typical role for Suicune in the current meta of the game. Using it as a member during the week on your team is pretty rare and few and far between for how often we see it. Because it's typically a suboptimal way of running it, but with a Suicune with this stats, I think it is worth to consider. So this is just with a Feraligatr with Berry Finding S, and as you can see, it beats out the Suicune 1, so you wouldn't be using this one in that circumstance. But if you can get something like this. But this one actually can hold up in that regard, which is tremendously interesting, especially when you consider that that applies at both Cyan and at Greengrass, where there is no favored berry. That's the difference between the second set here. As you can see, even without favored berry, the Suicune with... this is the closest they get, but this one still does outperform the other one. Now, berry bombing though. This is where you said you understand the concept of overstacking. Berry bombing is really the goal of the legends in the meta currently, and if you have a Raikou already that you're talking about investing, here's one interesting thing. Berry bombing is really about just building up as many berries on one Pokemon as possible. So that way during an event week, you can go to your island of choice, drop them all on the morning of Monday morning, so that way you just have a bunch of immediate strength given to Snorlax. Now, I find that the best way to do it is kind of trying to find a balance of whatever the legend you have selected is, like one or two of the other berry specialists to contribute to buffing the skill. But you really don't necessarily need 4 or 5 because the way the skill works, if I pull it up here, you can see the way the skill works is there's a pretty decent jump from having 2 species to 3 species, going by like 2. But then every jump after that, I mean, 5 species you get 2 more from 4 to 5. But the jump between 3 to 4 versus 1 to 2 is much more minimal than, say, the jump from 2 to 3 is going to be the biggest jump that you're seeing. And getting a jump to 5 species in most circumstances is not really useful with the berry bombing because unless you're running water berry is the favorite berry that you want the next week, because overall you're going to want at least one of those specialists that you're stacking on. It's typically better that you have at least one that's berry finding S with favored berry for whatever your plotted thing is. So if you think you're going to get electric berry, you want one Raichu on that team. I find typically is better than getting the 5 species. And if it's better to get the 5 species, then it's better to get 3 species because the difference is closer between 3 to 4 versus 4 to 5. Or maybe sometimes even throwing on a healer is a good option because it's making then more procs per day because the Suicunes energized. So honestly, berry bombing is its own whole concept that could honestly be its whole own video of like what are the best berry bombing teams for prepping. But I just threw together a pretty basic one here. Now, if you don't know berry type, then it really doesn't matter what legend you're using because all berries are equal. If you know you're going to be going to Cyan, then obviously the Suicune is going to be better at that job than when other Pokemon are going to be. But overall, you don't really care about which legend you're using. You just want to use the one that you have the best with the best stats, which I don't know what your Raikou looks like. I don't have that context here, but I doubt it looks better than this first Suicune. So if you want to berry bomb, I think this is a really good option, a phenomenal option, in fact, that you should be considering. But if you want to use it for general use, then I guess the second one is better in some ways. And yeah, that can just be seen in their difference between skill procs per day, but I also did a little bit of math because I'm a big math nerd. So I have the Berry Bomb demo here. So this down here calculates how many berries you're going to generate per day just from Suicune's skill contribution. And if you're only counting up the berry specialist that you'd only be stacking on, so ignoring the healer and ignoring the Suicune itself, then if you add these 3 values together, then that gives you a value per day estimate of roughly how much strength you're going to gain at the start of the next week if you build up a berry bomb for each day of the week. So it's a way to estimate how much strength the berry bomb is actually going to contribute. And I made a comparison, a berry bomb demo of each of these. If you want to check my math, you can, but I've taken all these numbers and run them through 2 calculations. This is the calculation that I found for the first Suicune. Don't rely on these numbers because they do vary based off island bonus and honestly thousands of other differences. But as a comparison for their rough value and strength for berry bombing, the first one, 6,990. The second one, 3,688. So you're looking at nearly like 50 to 60% of the value, if I had a rough guesstimate, of how much the first one has, or the second one has in potential of berry bombing compared to the first one. So if you want to berry bomb, really the second one is out of the picture. It's not very good for that purpose. Like I said, it has nothing for skill triggers, and there's nothing going for it in that regard. So yeah, I guess it's really just down to situation. But if you have a good Raikou, aside from it, like I said, you're really not caring that much about the berry type. Like, you're caring about the berry type, but you're just going to build a team of whatever Pokemon are in your box best to assist the legend to berry bomb better. So if you don't have good electric types to aid the Raikou, then maybe getting one or two for a Feraligatr and a Croconaw might be a good play to aid the Suicune at the job of berry bombing. Maybe getting a Pikachu and Raichu to aid the Raikou is the play, if that's what you have. If you invested skill seeds into the Raikou already, I suggest continuing down that route and maybe going for this Berry Fighting S Help bonus one, because you're going to be using the Raikou as your Berry Bomb prep, Berry Bomb / prep Pokemon, and you're going to be using the Suicune as a support Pokemon during like event weeks that you have Water Favored Berry or something. And you really don't need two Berry Bomb skill specialists, because yeah, you may have different favored berries, but how often is it really going to come up that you know in advance you're going to get Water Favored Berry versus knowing in advance that you're going to get Electric Favored Berry? Really only on events where you're going to be choosing an island, and only on ones where you know, like, oh, I'm going to be going to Old Gold Power Plant, I'm going to be going to Cyan Beach. So there's just a lot of things to consider here. What are you intending to do with the legend? What does the rest of your box look like? And then, well, I guess that's really just those two things. The one last thing that I do want to talk about is XP, because my gosh, there is a huge difference in XP between these two Suicunes. Like I said earlier, Suicune 2, significantly cheaper, miles cheaper for investment, both in XP and skill seed. But I just really wanted to actually like show you here what the difference actually looks like, because it's kind of insane. So the first one, with the XP gains down nature, if you invested, you said you had 300 plus candies. I assumed that meant less than 400. So I just gave you the maximum amount possible with that parameter of 300 to 400, with being 399. Even if you use the XP boost during the thing and just dump all of your Dream Shards and all of your candies into the Suicune for the Christmas event, all the ones that you have, then you'd still have to aid it with an additional 125 just to reach level 50. Of 125 Handy Candy S, which is 373 regular candies, which is basically what you already have. You only have about half of what you need when you're doubling the XP to get to level 50, not even level 60. And level 50 is where you get that Help Speed S that aids further. Compared to the other one, if you invested those 399 as well with the XP gains up nature, now it is one level behind by default. It's level 29 here versus level 30, so that does put it at a slight disadvantage to begin with, but it overtakes it in XP and comes out on the other end at level 44 versus the other one would only get to level 41. And then it would take an additional 163. You're looking at like half the amount of less than half the amount of candies of investment just to get it to level 50. And then when you're looking at to level 60, you're talking 808 versus 1294. I don't have an additional like 500 candies to sit around. I don't know if you have an additional like 500 candies. The Handy Candy S difference is like almost half. I guess it's closer to like 3/5 or something like that. But as you can see, 270 versus 432. Significant difference in the amount of XP that you're going to be investing. And then something that these XP tables don't even account for is Sleep XP overnight, which this guy's going to be gaining roughly 20% more XP overnight from this, plus an additional 14% more from Sleep XP. And unlike a lot of other skills specialists, the Legends are one of the better ones to have to be sleeping with overnight, because they have a really low skill trigger rate. So getting their inventory full to have the highest possible odds of a double proc in the morning is really good. It's not going to be wasting procs like a Golduck would be by being run overnight. So it's going to be getting a lot more XP, probably Honestly, I haven't done the math for this. You guys are going to get some live math here. I'm going to clear this one. It's 1.14 times 1.2 divided by the... I know it's not exact. They only got 0.8. That's like a 70% increase, roughly, to the amount of XP that you be getting compared to this one. So, this one is... The good one for berry bombing is expensive as all get out. Something that I didn't even talk about, the Dream Shard cost here. Level 50, you're looking at 768,000 Dream Shards just to get to level 50 versus 551,000. If you want to get to level 60, 1.9 million versus 2.7 million. Like, you're talking 800,000 Dream Shards of investment. And then an extra main skill seed once it gets to that level. So, and that may be difficult as a free-to-play. That's difficult as a premium player. So, there's lots of things to consider there. Very bizarre situation. Gave me a ton of stuff to think about, and yeah. Anyway, I hope you learned something. If you have, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. Down in the description of this video, there's going to be that link for you to submit your own Pokemon if you've enjoyed the talk and have your own sort of dilemmas. I'd love to talk through them. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye now.